In this lesson, you will learn how to carry out a small historical investigation using familiar evidence close to home or school. You will learn how to ask a focused question, organize what you find, place findings in time order, and write a careful final explanation. Imagine a learner looking at an old family photograph, a building plaque, a remembered family story, and a dated school record. None of these needs to be dramatic. Each one can become useful when we ask a clear question and investigate carefully. Look at the broad topics on the left and the smaller questions on the right. A historical question is a focused question about the past that can guide an investigation. Instead of asking everything about a building, photograph, tradition, or family record, we narrow the topic to one clear relationship such as change, use, origin, or time. A good question is specific enough to help us decide what evidence we need. The funnel shows the most important move. A historical question should be focused and answerable. A narrow question helps us know what evidence to look for. A broad topic can easily become too large for a small project. If we ask only what the whole history of a building is, we may not know where to begin. A more focused question gives the investigation a clear direction. The same idea works for an object, tradition, or family record. The project does not need a dramatic discovery. It needs a clear question that can be investigated carefully. That makes a small project practical. Good investigations begin with manageable questions. A clear question matters more than a dramatic discovery. Use the funnel to compare broad and focused questions. What is a historical question, and how can you frame one about a local object, building, tradition, or family record? The narrowed question gives the rule. A historical question is a focused question about the past that can guide an investigation. Frame one by narrowing a broad local object, building, tradition, or family record topic to one clear, answerable question. The question should help decide what evidence is needed. Next, we will organize sources in a source table and record their provenance. Look across the 5 columns and notice that every source is recorded in the same way. A source table is an organized record of the sources used in an investigation. The first column includes provenance, meaning where the source came from or how it reached the investigator. The remaining columns record date, information, limits, and follow-up questions so useful details and unanswered points stay visible. The repeated columns make the investigation easier to track. A source table records sources in the same fields. That structure helps us compare sources without losing important details. Without an organized record, it is easy to forget where a detail came from or to mix one source with another. Provenance matters because different sources may reach us in different ways. The limits column is equally important because a source may be useful without answering every question. A follow-up question then turns that limit into a next step rather than a guess. The table does more than store facts. Provenance keeps source information traceable. Recording limits and follow-up questions also helps prevent unsupported claims. Read the 5-column headings from left to right. What is a source table? What does provenance mean? And which details should the table record? The column headings contain the full answer. A source table is an organized record of investigation sources. Provenance means where a source came from or how it reached the investigator, and the table should record origin, date, information, limits, and follow-up questions. Using the same fields makes sources easier to compare. Next, we will arrange findings on a timeline. Look at the same findings above and below. At the top, they are mixed. At the bottom, they are arranged from earlier to later. A timeline places findings in chronological order so we can see sequence clearly. When a date is only approximate, the timeline should show that carefully rather than inventing an exact year. The lower row turns scattered notes into a time pattern. A timeline arranges findings in chronological order. It makes earlier and later relationships easy to see. Chronological order helps us notice whether a source belongs before or after another source. That matters when an investigation asks about change over time. But a timeline is only as accurate as the dates recorded in the source table. If the evidence is approximate, the timeline should preserve that limit. Good timeline work clarifies order without creating false certainty. The timeline should not pretend to know more than the sources. Timeline dates should match the evidence. Use exact dates only when the source supports them. Compare the mixed cards with the ordered line. How should investigation findings be arranged on a timeline? The earlier to later arrow gives the rule. Investigation findings should be arranged in chronological order from earlier to later, using exact dates only when known and marking approximate dates carefully. The timeline should preserve the limits of the evidence. Next, we will check a family memory instead of accepting it automatically. Look at the family memory on the left and the photograph on the right. The relative remembers two details, but the photograph supports only one of them. Family memory can therefore be useful evidence, but it should be checked against other available evidence when possible. A detail that cannot be checked should remain uncertain rather than becoming a certain fact. The center boxes separate what is checked from what is not. Family memory is useful, but should be checked. Another source may support some remembered details while leaving others uncertain. Memory is not a recording machine. People can remember important events clearly while being less certain about dates, order, or small details. That is why family memory should be treated as a source, not as an automatic final answer. When another source supports the same point, confidence in that detail can grow. When no other source checks it, the detail should remain cautious. The right response is neither automatic trust nor automatic rejection. Checked details can be stronger than unverified details. Keep uncertain memory details clearly marked instead of turning them into facts. Use the two result boxes between memory and photograph. How should family memory be used in a historical investigation? The comparison gives a balanced rule. Family memory can be used as a source, but remembered details should be checked against other available evidence when possible, and unverified details should remain uncertain. The photograph shows how one remembered point can be supported while another remains open. Next, we will write a cautious conclusion that separates known facts from plausible inference. Look at the two boxes before the final card. A conclusion is the final explanation drawn from the investigation. The known facts box contains details supported by the available evidence, while the plausible inference box contains a reasonable idea that is not fully confirmed. A careful conclusion keeps these levels separate and uses cautious wording when the evidence does not justify certainty. The two boxes prevent certainty from spreading too far. A conclusion should separate fact from plausible inference. Stronger and weaker parts of the evidence should not sound equally certain. The goal of a conclusion is not to make the investigation sound exciting. It is to say exactly what the evidence supports. Strongly supported details can be stated more firmly, while less certain ideas need cautious language. This makes the conclusion more trustworthy because the wording matches the strength of the evidence. The wording should match the strength of support. Conclusion language should match the evidence. Use confident wording for well-supported facts and cautious wording for plausible inference. Use the known facts and plausible inference boxes. What is a conclusion, and how should it separate known facts from plausible inference? The two-column builder gives the rule. A conclusion is the final explanation drawn from an investigation. It should state well-supported facts clearly and mark plausible inference with cautious wording when the evidence is incomplete. The wording should match the strength of support. Next, we will connect question, source table, timeline, and conclusion in one mini-investigation workflow. Follow the old-school bell from left to right. The investigation begins with one focused historical question, then records the available sources in a source table, arranges the findings on a timeline, and ends with a cautious conclusion. Each stage does a different job, but all 4 stages stay connected to the same question. This is enough for a strong mini-investigation, even when the result is ordinary rather than dramatic. The 4 stages form one complete investigation path. A mini-investigation connects 4 careful steps. Question, source table, timeline, and conclusion each build on the previous stage. The focused question tells us which evidence matters. The source table keeps provenance, information, and limits organized. The timeline then shows how findings relate in time, while the conclusion states only what the evidence can support. Because the process is careful from start to finish, a small project can be meaningful without discovering anything sensational. The value comes from the method rather than the spectacle. Careful method matters more than dramatic discovery. A well-organized investigation can reach a useful result from ordinary local evidence. Trace the 4 stages from left to right. What are the main steps in conducting a mini-historical investigation? The workflow gives the complete sequence. Conduct a mini-historical investigation by framing a focused historical question, recording sources and provenance in a source table, arranging findings on a timeline, and writing a cautious conclusion that separates known facts from plausible inference. Each step should stay connected to the same investigation question. Next, we will use one final checklist to make sure the investigation is complete and careful. Use the 4 checklist cards as a final review. The historical question should be focused and answerable. The source table should record provenance, date, information, limits, and follow-up questions, while the timeline should show findings from earlier to later without inventing precision. The conclusion should separate known facts from plausible inference. The 4 cards give one simple quality check. A complete investigation has 4 connected parts. Focus, source recording, chronology, and conclusion should all support the same question. This checklist prevents common shortcuts. It stops a project from becoming too broad, keeps source origins and limits visible, prevents dates from being invented, and keeps conclusions from sounding more certain than the evidence. Most importantly, it reminds us that a project does not need a spectacular discovery to be worthwhile. Careful method, ordinary evidence, and honest limits can still produce a meaningful historical investigation. That leaves us with one final standard for good work. Careful evidence matters more than dramatic discovery. A small, well-supported investigation is a successful historical project. Use all 4 checklist cards for the final review. What should you check before calling a mini-historical investigation complete? The 4 cards provide the complete answer. Check that the historical question is focused, the source table records provenance and required source details, the findings are arranged on a careful timeline, and the conclusion separates known facts from plausible inference. A project can be successful without any dramatic discovery. You are ready to plan and carry out a careful mini-historical investigation using ordinary local or family evidence.